Cognitive dissonance, the discomfort you feel when you try to hold contradictory beliefs simultaneously. What psychological fact blows your mind? You can get secondary post-traumatic stress disorder, such as police members who have to watch evidence videos and images of brutal acts of violence, murder, etc. Similarly, second-hand trauma, I guess not full-blown PTSD, blew my mind when my therapist told me that. I had gone to my friend's trial for emotional support a few years ago, and I told my therapist it was awful and still stuck with me. That's when I found out secondary trauma is a thing, and just hearing or witnessing a loved one recount the bad thing that happened can cause a trauma response in the way having that thing happen directly to you can. I had no idea, but all the feelings I had after that trial made a lot more sense. There's this whole thing that men and women face each other differently. When women face and speak to each other, they speak heart to heart, like this. When men face each other, they stand slanted, like this. Men go pretty far with this. Guys will talk about their problems where you both face forward. They also tend to enjoy spending time with each other doing things where they don't face each other, watch sports, play video games, etc. This is pretty useful to know as a woman because you can make yourself more disarming by consciously approaching men with your body turned slightly away from them. It's mostly in business settings. Like you should approach your boss, if he's male, with a bit of a slant. It's a handy trick that can give you a very slight edge. Interestingly enough, men are the only ones sensitive to this. Women don't really notice the way you stand, so the business scenario I described earlier doesn't work in reverse. If you're approaching a female boss, it makes no difference how you face. Tip of the tongue phenomena: if you are trying to remember a word or name, and you just can't quite access it in your memory, but your brain says I know this, then guess at the first letter. The odds are very good that you already correctly remember the first letter, even if you can't think of the rest of the word. The people who give the best advice are usually the ones with the most problems. The brain reacts to emotional pain the same way it does to physical pain. I seriously thought I was going to have a stroke when I found my mom dead. My head hurt so bad for an entire week. I had bad chest pains and had heart palpitations really bad for a while. I'm physically fine. My dad said he thought he was going to have a heart attack when my grandmother called him to tell him my grandfather died. He's physically fine too though. I have chronic depression and I hurt all the time. There is nothing physically wrong with me, it's all mental. That only 5% of our cognitive activity is conscious and the rest is unconscious. And that there are things we simultaneously know but don't know, because they're unconscious. Have you ever been walking in the woods when suddenly a visceral fear washes over you? Like death is behind you, breathing down your cold, goosebump freckled back. That's probably because there's a deadly animal watching or stalking you. Mountain lions are my favorite example because we never see them, hear them, or even know when they are around. But as soon as one is near you, you feel it. Deep within your being, your flight responses go haywire and you begin to walk faster or even break into a run, or you walk slowly because that's what your instincts are making you do. And that is what keeps you from becoming a chew toy. Your subconscious picks up on the unnatural leaf crackles or the slight scent change or the lack of bird calls or even the low hum outside our range of hearing that they sometimes make when stalking. None of it is conscious. You have no clue what is going on or that you are in danger, but your subconscious does, and every part of yourself you can't control goes into overdrive and makes you get the fuck out of there. The right side of the brain might have its own conscious. It's just a theory, but it could be true since there have been some tests that show it. I should preface this by saying that I'm not a researcher nor a doctor. For the past few years I've tried to read as much as I could about the subject, but the procedure is invasive and only used in extreme cases to treat people with schizophrenia, so we don't know that much about how this works. The way I understand this is that the thinking and talking part of the brain is mostly present in one lobe, while the subconscious is present in both. If you cut the tissue connecting the two lobes, each lobe will control one side of the body and only one will have thinking and talking you in it. This can lead to one side of your body doing things that are completely in character for you to do, but you, the thinking and talking part of the brain, will not realize it's happening. The main test I've seen performed involves giving the subconscious controlled hand some writing utensils and showing them, and only them, a written question. The hand writes a sensible answer and then the researcher shows this answer to the thinking and talking eye, and asks why they wrote what they wrote. Not only do all subjects not remember seeing the question or writing the answer, but they will make up a reason on the spot for why they wrote it and will be convinced that their made-up reason is the real one. This, coupled with various measurements that report that our subconscious seems to decide on doing stuff a couple of milliseconds before our thinking and talking part does would indicate that what we consider our consciousness, the voice that calls itself me in our heads, is actually just a social adaptation that is make up a lie to explain to others why I'm doing what I'm doing and try to be consistent with what you said in the past as its primary function. The existence and repercussions of cognitive dissonance. It's the discomfort you feel when you try to hold contradictory beliefs simultaneously, that prompts you to try and resolve the contradiction, and compartmentalize the belief so you don't have to deal with it. But the term is misused a lot. Memories. Every time you think of a memory, you bring it to your frontal lobe and it changes a little each time to be stored again. It would be fascinating to be able to compare the real memory with a memory that has been thought of and changed many times. It's nothing new, but it still blows my mind that humans can be dangerous to other humans. It blows my mind that there are people out there who commit murder. I think it blows my mind because we can think about the fact we're killing someone, whereas I don't think there is evidence that other animals can do the same. We can kill for various emotional reasons and feel guilty and understand we are killing, versus killing from pure instincts. Instinct always factors in some way, but we have metacognition. As far as I've found, there was a study published around 2009 that studied this. It found that dolphins and macaque monkeys have the potential for metacognition, but it's still a theory. Thinking is not the same as being able to think about our thinking, to analyze our own behaviors and feelings. We know humans can reflect on our own state of mind. We don't yet know if animals can. You can ask people for small favors like handing the salt or sharing a piece of gum. The person will start feeling like they like you, to explain them doing favors for you. They're also willing to do bigger favors for you after small favors. It's the foot in the door technique. While often extremely abusive and able to wreck lives, most narcissists develop personality disorders from a severe trauma or event in their lives, usually between the ages of 6 and 10. Their brains cannot cope with this and they use narcissistic behaviors to help. Also, narcissists' brains can actually rewrite memories of events to cope with their trauma. This is why they can swear till they're blue in the face that their version of events are right. Narcissist personality disorder is fascinating. If someone else makes your sandwich, it'll taste better. Because if you did it yourself, you'll add less care to it. I read that this is because your exposure to the smells and textures of the ingredients desensitizes you when you make your own sandwich. You can always see your nose, but your mind blocks it out. Your brain is literally two brains working together. Like, for example, you are in one half of the brain, the one that can talk. For example, if you cut the corpus callosum, the thingy thongy longy schlongy that connects your brain halves together, you will have a problem. Because there will be another person inside of you arguing with you internally all the time. For example, let's say there are a magical blue and a magical red Snickers bar. You might want the blue one. But as you reach for it, your other hand will slap your hand and will try to reach the other Snickers bar. Last year I did my senior project on machine learning. I had to write a paper for it as well, and I compared how the living people and animals learn, versus how AI learns. There are different learning processes out there, but the specific process I use to train the AI is known as reinforcement learning. It's the same conceptual as operant conditioning, which applies to the living. It blew my mind to see the computer behave in a similar way as we do. In fact, the more I think about things, the more I find it easy to draw allegories and comparisons from describing a machine to make it more understandable when trying to explain a human psyche theory, etc. A lot of our behavior was conditioned out of us when we were kids, by positive or negative inputs. These are like the base programs on which we operate on for the rest of our lives. It will be hard to reprogram, as you might imagine. Think of trauma as errors in the code, or viruses. The more you ignore it and don't seek closure or just put brain power into it, the more it will corrode you and eventually error appears on the screen. Prominent things that affect the function negatively that you should probably not dwell on, but once you're hit hard it's hard to not notice the bruise. For the mental, maybe, but you get what I mean. People also tend to be attracted to bad partners resembling their bad parents if they have bad childhoods because it's just how you're programmed as a kid. It's a habit, but can be overwritten with love. Ultimately, love is the answer. Very sappy, but it's true. You can implant memories. If you tell someone, say a friend you were at a party with years ago, that another friend was there and got hammered and made a jackass of himself, adding details of course, the first friend may not recall, because it didn't happen. Bring this up again a few months later and that first friend will now remember it. Because he's remembering the last time you said it. I tried this once. It took some thinking about the situation and players, but it worked. If we hear or see a baby cry, we will have a strong impulse to go to that baby, right? I did some research, asked my dad, and found out the only reason babies cry is to tell us something's up. A cat's meow is on the same frequency as a baby's cry, so it triggers the human parental instinct too. Cats only meow at humans. The self-fulfilling prophecy. My parents were like, children in Africa are literally dying to have your job right now. When you got burnt out by studies or something. Not only that, my parents were like, do you want to be called a midget? Huh? With regard to me being just not outgoing, very not my fault, because they made it as inconvenient as possible for me to get out the house, hang out with friends, because of surprise, studies. The only option was a trampoline in the house for exercise. Eventually, what you curbed, you don't know. And you won't love what you don't know. And once you don't love something during your formative years, sorry but that bud's nipped, honey. Look at you, wallowing in your self-pity. Now I'm average in my professional qualification graduate results, shorter than the average girl, and catatonic on my bed from guilt and shame, unable to get up. So yeah, they've gotten what they preached for. Trauma works in very interesting ways. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate that notification bell for more videos like this. And please let us know more psychological facts in the comments below.